So awakening to love in action. Easter. Happy Easter. This is just so exciting. On this very special and sacred morning, we're celebrating the arisen soul. On this very special and sacred Easter morning, we're celebrating the awakened heart. And on this special and sacred Easter morning, we move into the realm of Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness. It's an interesting term, isn't it? But I think it's really beautiful, just the thought of Christ consciousness. But what does it mean? What does it mean in terms of a definition? And more importantly, what does it mean in terms of our lives? What is consciousness? Let's take this, let's dissect it a little bit. This is how I define consciousness. Consciousness is an amalgamation, I love when I use big words and then can't say them, amalgamation, a fusion, a commingling of our thoughts, feelings, beliefs, attitudes, values, words, and actions. Christ consciousness, then, is the consciousness, the thoughts, feelings, beliefs, attitudes, values, words, and actions of the person whose heart is awakened to love and to their unique, perfect divinity. I've been moved back a little bit, so this light is shining and it's kind of glaring. So I'm going to scoot up a little bit so that it's not glaring right. Much better. Oh, that's much better. All right. There we go. Christ consciousness is the consciousness of the person whose soul, meaning whose life force, energy, has risen above the experience of the condition and into the realm of higher understanding. Christ consciousness is the consciousness of the person who knows, who really truly knows who and whose they are. Christ consciousness is the consciousness of the one who soars into the infinite possibilities of what it means to be a God being here on earth. Not God in its entirety, but a God being, a God spark, as it's been told sometimes. I love that thought. I'm a God spark, Sounds wonderful. Doesn't that sound pretty good? I think so. It sounds pretty good, but in terms of actually having Christ consciousness alive in us, well, what does that mean? How do we do that? I have some really terrific news this morning on how to do that. The moment you truly desire Christ consciousness, the moment you make a decision, set your intention that that's how you will be and live your life, you will awaken to love in that moment, and you will unlock the potential that is locked up inside of you to be that Christ consciousness. It is always there. You must awaken to it and arise in it, and your mere decision, your choice, your intention, your determination is what unlocks it. Just making that choice, just saying, this is what I choose today, is what unlocks that Christ consciousness within you. And it doesn't matter where you are right in your life right now, because I know if you're like me, you're thinking, well, I'll get there as soon as I get my shoes organized in my closet, then I'll have Christ consciousness. That's not. No, it happens the moment, regardless of where you are in your life and on your journey. Right where you are, that's when it happens. And it doesn't matter where you've been in your life or in your past. There are a lot of people that think, I can never attain that because I did this. But that's not true either. None of that matters, because at any moment you can decide anew and you can arise anew. So, I like that as an affirmation. Let's say that together. I decide anew and I arise anew. I decide anew and I arise anew. All right. This is possible because of a principle that Jesus so beautifully showed us over 2,000 years ago, which is what I like to call the resurrection principle. The resurrection principle says that the power of life, the power for life, is stronger than anything else. That's okay. She's got her binky now. Life is good. We were just talking about how our daughter learned to speak with her binky. She was still 3. Yes. But there are just some battles you just aren't going to fight, right? So, we see its effect everywhere. Without the resurrection principle, every falling leaf would be a step toward the end of a tree's life. Think about that. With every withered blossom, the flower would cease to be. With a cut of a finger or a bruise of the knee, our lifespan would be shortened. With every closed door, nothing else would open for us. Without the resurrection principle, and with every sorrow, discouragement, or despair, our faith and hope would be lost, never to return. But we know that none of these things occur, do they? Because of the resurrection principle. So you only need to look at how it changes year in and year out to realize that it's ever renewing, ever rebirthing, ever regrowing. The master teacher Jesus demonstrated the epitome of this principle, obviously on Easter morning over 2,000 years ago, and we can demonstrate it in huge ways when we, despite what has occurred in our lives up until this moment, despite our circumstances or conditions surrounding us, when we make the decision, make the choice, make the determination to awaken our hearts to love and to arise in our highest potential in this life, when we make that decision, that's when it shifts. When we do that, we invoke the resurrection principle. When we do this, we might even say that we are on our own individual Easter journey. And as we each individually and collectively take the Easter journey, profound possibilities for launching us into a new era of beingness occur, and new possibilities for humankind transpire. Because when we make a choice like that, we're not just affecting our own personal lives, we are affecting the whole, because we are part of something bigger than ourselves. I love the work of Bishop John Shelby Spong. He's done a lot to bring the life and death of Jesus into clarity. In his book, Why Christianity Must Change or Die, he had this to say about Easter. Easter, with its story of the resurrection, can also be transformed, I believe, and carry us into a new future. Yet before that is possible, the miracles of the physical resuscitation, the angels who roll stones away from tombs, and the bodies that appear out of nothing and disappear into thin air must be dismissed for the developed legends that they are. But life that transcends every human limit is a powerful portrait. Death, which opens all things to new possibilities, love, which triumphs over hatred, being, which overcomes non-being, those are truths to which Easter points. And those are truths that emerge when God is met in the edges and at the limits of our finite humanity. This is what the stories of the resurrection are all about. So once we have made the decision to awaken, to live in an awakened, arisen place of Christ consciousness, once we have decided to meet God, the God of our being, on the edges and at the limits of our finite humanity, how do we actually live from it? Because that's really our key element here. Our decision, our choice, our determination unlocks the potential within us. But then, living from the decision keeps the door open. We have to choose to live from that decision. Bye-bye, sweetie. You may recall, well, let's look at a simple example that may just help. You may recall that shortly before the crucifixion, Jesus washed the feet of his disciples. Peter mistook Jesus' intention, thinking that Jesus was teaching them to be humble in a physical demonstration or to be a servant leader, which to some degree he probably was. But there was more. There was always more than what was on the surface of his teachings. Such a misinterpretation was not unusual. The disciples often didn't get Jesus' deeper meanings. And if we forget that the scripture is not about the persons or conditions cited, but rather is a metaphor for our relationships to the whole, we, just like the disciples, will mistake Jesus' teachings and we will take them on their face value alone. So what was it that Jesus was trying to teach by washing the disciples' feet? Well, symbolically, let's think about this. The feet represent the spiritual foundation upon which we stand, the consciousness that feeds our experiences in life. In this case, Jesus was trying to tell his disciples and us that we need to keep our foundation clean and pure by being vigilant in washing away thoughts and feelings and beliefs and attitudes and values and words and actions that are not founded in truth. They're not aligned. The ones that are not aligned with our spiritual truth, and they're the ones that are not grounded in love. In this act of washing the disciples' feet, Jesus was calling them, and he is calling us, to stand tall and to be strong in our own unique and perfect divinity. He was calling them and to us to stand tall and rising above the experience of any condition and into a realm of higher understanding. He was calling them and us to stand tall into the knowing of who and whose we are. He was calling to them and us to stand tall and then to soar into the infinite possibilities of what it means to be a God being, a God spark here on earth. He was calling them and to us to wash away anything that is unlike those things so that we can stand tall in Christ consciousness. That is the resurrection principle in action, and that is our Easter journey. Living the spiritual life means taking the Easter journey over and over again, not just once a year. It's something we begin anew every single time we remember, perhaps through doing a visioning board, or we are awakened to the fact that we truly are God in expression here. It's a journey that begins over and over again. When we begin to feel that the scars and the scrapes and the bumps and the bruises of life cause us to be less than whole and perfect and complete, that is when we have to remember. When we forget that all of those things are merely part of the journey of becoming who we are meant to be, we take our Easter journey whenever we get mesmerized by the conditions and move into fear. It's easy to do, isn't it, when we get distracted? It's great to remember this on a Sunday, as Rob was saying. We remember this. Oh yeah, I get this, this, sure. And then you get out there and you get that bill, and you get that car issue, and you get life happening. And it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy. When we feel that doubt or that worry, the upset, we have to rise above all of that and come from a renewed consciousness and create a new experience. Because if we look at what is the effect out there, what created that effect out there? Our consciousness. Our consciousness, the thought comes first, the experience comes after that. So if you're always taking what you see out there as the condition or the cause, you're just going to keep this cycle going. You're always going to stay in effect. And we have to bring it back. And it goes back to believing is seeing instead of seeing is believing. And so whatever it is you see there, that is, if it's not what you want, you say, I see that. That's a fact, but it's not the truth. And I'm stating my truth right now. And you're creating a new consciousness, a new beginning. Because what happens then is the law acts upon it and creates the new experience. And when you see that, then you know it works. I'm not going to tell you that you have to believe me. I'm saying do this, and when you see it, then you know. Then you'll know. This is what we never ask you to believe anything here. We ask you to learn the principles and then discover it on your own and then go, yeah, this stuff works. It's pretty amazing. So we take our Easter journey whenever we think we can't, because we absolutely can. If you were with us in February, you may remember that I shared a story of a journey of a different sort. It's a beautiful story about the journey of two clay pots. Does anybody remember this story of the two clay pots? Being carried up a stream from the master's house, and how one pot was cracked and felt so bad about never being able to deliver a full pot of water, never being able to live up to his full potential. So do you remember that? Yeah, some of you do. Okay. Well, that story has been turned into a poem by a beautiful young poet. Her name is Amy Love. Wouldn't you love that last name? And she is absolutely awakened to love and standing tall in her divinity. And I want to share that poem with you this morning because it's definitely a story of an Easter journey that that little clay pot took. So this is called The Cracked Pot by Amy Love. Each morning as her eyes opened, the dark-haired girl would yawn. Quickly she'd jump from her bed and gladly greet the dawn. Out the back door into the shed she'd run and grab her pole, affixing it to each end of it and a rounded baked clay bowl. She balanced the two vessels and headed down the dirt road until she reached the river where she gathered up her load. Back up the hill to her abode she'd wander from the stream, hauling pails of water while she'd whistle and daydream. One day she was in such a rush that as she flexed her back, one of the little pots slipped off the rod and landed with a whack. The poor clay pot with horror could feel all across one side the crack that had resulted, and silently he cried. Each week the fear increased. He felt he couldn't pull his weight of water for the team because he was half full. By the time they would reach the house, the pot would ache and hurt, feeling so ashamed that most his efforts went to dirt. In a vain attempt to hold his charge, he'd swing and he would tilt. Directing water from the crack did nothing for the guilt. Yet every day the girl would come and fill up the reserve, and desperate for acceptance, the pot would swerve. For 2 whole years he did his best to hide the pain inside, even though with every drip he'd lose a bit more pride. It came to pass that finally this little pot of clay couldn't take it anymore, and he shared of his dismay. As the young girl went to put her tools safely in the shed, she heard a cry escape the pot and picked him up instead. "What's wrong?" she asked in disbelief, for never had she known that pottery could possibly to agony be prone. The broken pot tried to preserve what dignity was left, but as his broken speech would prove, of hope he was bereft. "I've tried my best to serve you well, to be strong instead of weak, but surely after all this time you've noticed that I leak. I hate that you are tasked with such a simple, easy chore, yet every day you fill me up, and out this crack I pour. I'm sorry that I failed you, and these feelings, they do haunt. If I could but have just one wish, to be whole is what I want." The little girl could feel his pain, but words she could not speak. Instead she simply nodded, then lugged him to the creek. Together they approached the place where others drew their bath. Finally she spoke to him while pointing to their path. "I know that you're embarrassed by the water that has flowed out of your crack, but do you see what's grown along the road?" For the first time in a while the pot was not consumed by all his fear and doubts, so he took note of what had bloomed. "You see, dear pot, without your crack providing daily showers, my routine walk would not be filled with all these gorgeous flowers. 2 years ago my careless acts resulted in a deed that left me feeling terrible, and so I planted seed. I'm sorrier than words can say to hear you've suffered guilt. I hope you know if not for you those blossoms soon would wilt. I understand just how you feel. I too had traits that daunt, but then I came to realize imperfections we should flaunt. You see, sweet pot, it's all those things, those cracks and scrapes and scars, that all together help to shape us into who we are." The pot was overcome with joy, and as the tears did pour out of his crack onto the ground, his heart began to soar. "I am grateful for your kindness, which has surely proved to purge me of my fears and shame and doubt. I have now but just one urge. I'll do anything you ask of me that further will amend all the pain I've caused for you, my fire-baked best friend. Today, as we walk to the house, may we stop along the way? I'd like to bring my fellow pot a freshly picked bouquet." And so on this very special and very sacred Easter morning, let's each commit to taking our own Easter journey, a journey that calls us to stand more fully and completely into who and whose we are, a journey that calls us higher to the possibilities and higher to the possibilities of higher love, a journey that awakens our hearts and raises our souls into Christ consciousness, a journey that asks us to stand tall. And so it is.
So it is.